Yo, what up? It's DJ Burns. I'm about to tell you guys about my trip to New Orleans. It was super fun, but before I went, I did a whole bunch of research, YouTube, Pinterest, Google, all that. I'm going to put my Google Maps down in the description so you can see all the spots that I went to, even the spots that I didn't get a chance to go to, and the spots that I didn't even get to film in this video. And also for you beer heads, I'm going to put my Untapped description in the description so you can see all the beers that I had. So I hope you guys have fun in your trip to New Orleans. Let's get it started. So we drove from Fresno to LA, took a flight out of LAX. We went for a week. It was Friday to a Friday. We stayed at an Airbnb, was close to Canal Street. The Airbnb was not bad for the whole week. It was $1,540. It had 3 bedrooms, a nice kitchen, nice little living room area. Came with all the essentials, TV, internet, Wi-Fi, fridge, stove, all the good perks. It had a nice little backyard. It was in a cool neighborhood. We had some really friendly neighbors. There was actually a party going on one of the nights when we were walking back, so that was kind of tempting to stop and party with them. It was cool because there was actually a Netflix special being filmed in that area featuring Jamie Foxx, so that was kind of fun. The first night we went to Bayou Beer Garden, which is located down the street from our Airbnb, and it's also a wine garden next to it. They're pretty much attached, and they're pretty cool. They stayed up pretty late. We showed up maybe like around 1, so we figured we only have time to grab 1 beer, but because they saw that we were from out of town and, you know, we were hanging out and talking to them, they stayed up later than they would have normally stayed up. It's also a good place, they said, to watch a lot of the games, and they are also Untapped verified, so those of you beer heads, it's an Untapped verified location. For brunch, we went to Ruby Slipper Cafe. It was also down the street from our Airbnb. It was walking distance. It was maybe like 4 blocks away. It was cool because even though there was a long wait, maybe about 30 to 45 minutes, maybe even an hour if it's even more packed, there's a lot to do outside. As you could see, cornhole, Connect 4, and they also had a bar outside where you could get drinks while you wait. So we had a couple mimosas while we were waiting outside. It's a pretty popular place. You could tell obviously by the amount of people that go and the waiting time, but the food is really good. I would say it is worth it to wait. It doesn't just look good, it actually tastes good as well. So I would definitely recommend this place for brunch. It's a good brunch spot. Okay, so getting around New Orleans is actually pretty fun. There's a lot of different options. There's the streetcars, which are probably the most economic option that they have. You can either pay $3 for an entire day or $1.25 for a one-way pass. They don't have change though, so you do have to have the exact cash, or you can also download their app and do it that way. And they do run 24 hours. I definitely recommend trying the streetcars at least once when you are in New Orleans because it's kind of a historical mark. Another cool thing that they have is the blue bikes. They're super fun. They have these in different cities throughout the U.S. They might not necessarily be blue, but New Orleans has them blue. It's a minimum of 10 minutes after you download the app. You do pay for it in advance, but then after that, you kind of just pay per usage. You download the app. It's super convenient. It's fun. It's cheap. It's way faster to getting around city. You get a different view of the city, so that's kind of fun. And there's also a bike trail that you could take. And of course, there's Uber and Lyft that'll take you around the city and you get to see the nice art around the city. And there's also car rentals. We did rent a car for one of our days that we were out there. So normally there is art around the city because it's super artistic and it's very historic. It's a little bit special during the holidays because of the holiday decor around the city. Definitely great vibes around New Orleans. Super artistic. Now, Bourbon Street, famous Bourbon Street, of course, you have to check it out. It is super touristy. It is super college vibes. There's a shitload of bars to look at in Bourbon Street. Of course, that's what they're famous for. So I would say just hop around. There's not really one in particular that stood out. There's actually a bunch. A few of the famous ones are the Huge Ass Beer. That's the ones with the cup as an ass. Pat O'Brien's with the famous hurricane drinks, and way too many more to mention. It's kind of funny because there's cops on horses. Some of them are friendly. Some of them, they will not let you pet. At night, the street does close down, so you're free to walk around and pretty much just be drunk. There's a lot of drunk food, of course, pizza and fried chicken, po' boys on Bourbon Street. There's a lot of dive bars on the street too, so those are always fun. All the drinks are super cheap, so you can get drunk off of a few bucks. One of the other bars on Bourbon Street is the Absinthe House. This is a historic bar that you definitely want to check out. Warning that the drinks are super strong, but the way that they make them is pretty cool, and it's a very traditional way of making them, but they do taste like alcohol and licorice, I would say. But it's pretty cool the way they make it. They put a sugar cube, they put some liquor on top, and then when they light the sugar cube, they let the sugar cube melt into the drink, and they smash the sugar cube into the drink, and there you have it. And then that's pretty much the recipe for a blackout. Definitely they are strong, so be careful. So pro tip, I did find a secret bar. It is a vampire bar. You do have to experience it, and if you're gonna experience it, do it right. There's a vampire store that you want to check out down the street from Bourbon Street. You go and you buy something from the gift shop. They'll give you a code, and then you go to this bar, Fritzl's, and then in the back is where they let you in. You go upstairs, and then they have their own section up there. It's totally secluded, totally secret. They also have absinthe drinks up there. They have a patio that you can go out to and look out to Bourbon Street. It's a different view, and you also get to kind of have some exclusivity. And of course, world famous location, Café de Moon. You must go here. We were actually lucky to go at night when there was not a long line. So that's kind of another pro tip. You gotta get the beignets, coffee. I got the frozen coffee and it was bomb, and it's also fun playing with the sugar. Another dope spot is a Killer Po' Boys on Bourbon Street. This location is not the only one. They have other spots in New Orleans, but my favorite po' boys for sure were at this spot. Killer Po' Boys. It was definitely really good. And if you're like me, I love hunting for beer. One of the many beer spots in New Orleans was Crescent City Brew House. One of their older ones. They have these big barrels in there, and it's also a restaurant. So it's restaurant, oyster bar, regular bar, and brew house. Another really good brunch spot was Katie's. This place was north of where we were staying, so it's not necessarily super close to Bourbon Street, but I would say it's definitely worth the drive up there or walk depending where you're at. Another super popular spot, we waited about 30 minutes, not too much, and I would say it's kind of cool because there's a lot of art around there, and we actually walked down the street to get desserts. And another great place to have mimosas. We got the po' boy, which was off their menu, but you can still ask for it, and the shrimp po' boy was really good. This is where we went to go grab a little dessert while we waited. It's called, hopefully I'm saying this right, Angelo Brocchetto. It's a gelato and Italian dessert cafe. I definitely recommend it. Super good gelato, super good desserts. It's walking distance from Katie's, so if you do have a long wait, you can make it there and back. It's not in the main part of New Orleans, but it is super bomb. It's like a hidden gem that you do have to dig for. So of course, New Orleans is huge for their football. They love their football. They were pretty close at winning the Super Bowl this year. I was rooting for them. I became a bandwagon fan, I will admit, after going to New Orleans because of the culture of football in New Orleans. One of the biggest bars that they have is called Walkons. This is pretty much the spot to watch New Orleans games when you are in New Orleans. I would definitely recommend it. It's about a block away from the stadium. As you can imagine, it does get packed for games, so arrive early. They have awesome beer selections. They have really good food. Fun fact, they do have a funny little window in the men's restroom, so you can see outside, which is kind of weird, but they can't see inside. This restaurant is actually owned by Brandon Laundrie, a basketball player, and of course Saints quarterback Drew Brees. They both owned it. There's many locations in the South, and it was actually voted by ESPN as the #1 sports bar. Another dope brunch spot was District Donuts. It's in the Garden District of New Orleans. It's super bomb. They have really good coffee. They're pretty creative with their donuts as well, as they'll have pretty unique ingredients and ways of making donuts. We did their cinnamon roll donut, which was bomb. As you can see here, it not only does it look good, but it tastes good. There's definitely great vibes in there. Another must to do while you are in New Orleans is go on a swamp tour. We booked in advance. It was at Airboat Adventures. Like I said, book in advance. Not too expensive. It was super fun. You do have to rent a car to get there, or you could pay a little bit extra to get a shuttle to pick you up from your hotel. We actually got a coupon on Viator. I think I'm saying that right. Viator.com. It was $66 a person, which is super cheap. It lasted over an hour. They drive you around all the swamp areas, and we go looking for alligators. Of course, it's really popular in New Orleans to go spotting for alligator. I recommend getting a small boat because it goes places that the bigger ones can't go, and it's also faster, which means it's funner, and it's a little more intimate, so you get to ask questions and interact more with your driver. We did see quite a few alligators, even though it wasn't necessarily the season where they're very visible. So that was super fun. The ride was super fun. It was fast. It was exciting. The scenery is super beautiful. Our tour guide was actually pretty funny, so hopefully you guys get a tour guide just like the one that we did. I definitely recommend it. And when you go inside to their register, they actually have an albino gator inside, which is super rare, so that's kind of cool. You get to experience that and get to see that. During the ride, the alligators actually do come pretty close. You might get a little freaked out at first, but unless unless you're gonna try and put your hand down there, they're not gonna really mess with you, so don't be too alarmed. Our tour guide did say that there wasn't too many accidents happening, like maybe one every 30 years or something, and that's just because people were being stupid. So you do get to learn a lot about alligators and the nature and the culture in the swamps of New Orleans. Definitely recommend it. And of course, it just looks beautiful to be out there and be in contact with nature. So after the swamp tour, since we already had a car, we went to a plantation tour. It was quite a drive and it was raining, so I think that kind of made it seem a little longer. It was about an hour drive, but I definitely recommend going on a plantation tour where the plantations are located. There's a bunch on that road, so you kind of get to pick and choose whichever one you feel that you wanted to check out. This one looked really pretty, so we went ahead and checked this one out. This one was Nodaway Plantations. I think it's the furthest one of the area, and this is actually also a hotel. So if you wanted to, you could stay in the plantation, not the actual plantation building itself, but they have rooms on the side of it. So if you really like this spot, you could essentially stay there. It's also a wedding venue, so if you're getting married or having an event, this is also a venue where you can have your wedding or event. I do recommend renting a car if you're gonna go to plantations because they are so far, and since there's a bunch of them on the way, you can check out multiple in one day and make a day out of it. Like I said, it's about an hour drive away from actual New Orleans, but it's definitely worth it. You get to learn a lot of the history of plantations and the US in general. And if I remember correctly, I know they did use a lot of the plantations in this area for movies, like Forrest Gump, for example. The Django was used also. So definitely recommend checking out the plantations in New Orleans. So after a long day of looking at alligators and walking around plantations, we went to have dinner at Superior Seafood and Oyster Bar. It was pretty good. It was a little pricey, but the food was good. Their oysters, of course, were good, hence the name Superior Seafood and Oyster Bar. After dinner, we washed it all down at NOLA Brewery. This is probably one of their most popular spots in New Orleans. They did have the game on, so if you're in New Orleans trying to watch a game, this is another spot to watch football. They are also an Untapped verified location, so if you're checking in your beers, this is definitely a spot you want to check out. Their beers are really good. I actually took home a couple of souvenirs from them. If you want to take a souvenir, this is a good spot to get it at. They were also super close to another brewery called Port Orleans Brewing, which was about down the street, and that was super cool. Another bar in the area was a Bulldog Bar. This is a cool little speakeasy which had a bunch of craft beer on draft, so I definitely recommend that spot. Another brunch spot was St. Roch Market. This is actually a really cool spot. I know they have something similar in LA, but this is like the New Orleans version. It's pretty much a place where you can go and get any kind of food that you can think of. They had American, Indian, they had pho, they have a bar, they had Mexican food. It was super cool. So if you guys can't decide on what you want to eat and there's a group of you, this would probably be the best place to go because everybody could get something different, and then always sharing is caring, so that's kind of cool. You get to try different foods. The coffee place at St. Roch was actually really good. I definitely recommend grabbing a coffee while you're there, and as you can see, the food was really good. So another cool thing to do is visit the cigar factories in New Orleans. They are pretty much located where everything else is, near Bourbon Street. And this spot's cool because it's super like homegrown and you can actually see them roll the cigars live during the day. Unfortunately, when we went, we weren't able to see them because it was like after the hours that they were there rolling. As you can see, they have a bunch of different cigars that are either rolled there locally or they have from different areas of the world. So it's definitely a spot to go if you like cigars. Another famous thing to do while in New Orleans is go on the Mississippi River, and one of the best ways to do it, I think, is to go on the paddle wheeler. We went on the Creole Queen, which is one of the few different brands of paddle wheelers that are available to go on and ride on the Mississippi River, and it's pretty cool. They're 2 stories. They have a bar, they have a buffet, and they take you to different spots in the Mississippi River. The one that we took us to like a real historical spot where they actually had a war on, so you get to see like the land that the people fought, and then there's like somebody telling you the story of how it was back then to be in war in that time of life. I would definitely check out these boats because you get a sense of history. You get to know a little bit more about the culture of New Orleans and Louisiana in general, how it was back then, and at the same time, I mean, it gets you to appreciate the technology that we have now that sometimes we take for granted. So it's definitely cool to get a little history lesson and go on a boat ride and hang out. And of course, another really popular place in New Orleans that you should really go is Frenchmen Street. It's kind of like the more local area of New Orleans. It's more where the locals go to hang out. There's like a nice little art hop section that goes on. You get a lot of vendors, local artists selling their art. There's a lot of jazz bands playing at these bars. The vibe is super local, super fun, super chill. It's not as crazy as Bourbon Street, so if you're looking for a spot to go and just have a drink and still go out, definitely Frenchmen Street is a spot to go. Now, another recommendation of a really dope, really cool bar to go to is the Sazerac Bar. It's located in the Roosevelt Hotel. This is a really nice, fancy bar, and they're known obviously for the Sazerac drink. Some of the drinks that we got, and you'll actually could see the bartender making them right now, is the champagne lady. So it's like champagne with like a juice. So it's pretty good. It's almost like a mimosa, I guess. Another one that we got is the gin fizz, which is pretty cool, and it was actually recommended by one of the other local bartenders because we told him that we're looking for spots to go and we're gonna go to the Sazerac Bar. He recommended the gin fizz, which he told me that is a process to make because they have to manually shake, which you will see the bartender do right now in this video. They have to manually shake the drink for a long period of time. So I mean, the bartender kind of gets a little arm workout while he does it, but the drink is pretty cool. It comes out super foamy and it's really easy to drink. And of course, obviously get a Sazerac because that's what they're known for. I believe they are the ones who started the Sazerac drink, so definitely come to the Sazerac Bar and get a drink, and it's a super nice vibe. It's a little bit on the pricier side if you're comparing it to other stuff like on Bourbon Street like that, but I think it's definitely worth it. And of course, New Orleans, who dat is big on football. You definitely got to go to a game if it's in season and you are in New Orleans. I recommend definitely going to one of the Saints games. They are probably the biggest fans that I know. They are diehard fans. And even if you don't go to the game, definitely check out the pregame that they have, the tailgate, because it's pretty much like a big party right in front of the stadium. It's free. All you got to do is just show up. They do have some rules as far as like not taking in backpacks or purses a certain size, but once you get in, it's a huge party. They got a big production. They got the cheerleaders going, as you can see. They got a DJ. They got performers. It's definitely a dope vibe. It's super fun. Definitely recommend checking out the game and checking out the tailgate area while in New Orleans. Who dat? So another super cool and famous bar to go to while in New Orleans is the Carousel Bar, and this one is located in the Hotel Monteleone. This is pretty much one of the most famous bars, I would say, in New Orleans, and it is actually a working carousel. So you're sitting down in a carousel shaped bar, and it actually goes in circles. It's pretty fun. So when you get in there, you're in one position, and by the time you get out, you're probably somewhere else, but it's fun. It's definitely one of those really popular places that you got to go early, because if you want to sit on the carousel, pretty much that's where everybody else wants to sit, and there's only one carousel. The seating is very limited, but when you do get in there, it's super fun to have a couple drinks on this carousel. You see it turn and you see the bartenders kind of running around, so that's kind of fun. So definitely I recommend the Carousel Bar. All right, now let's get back to food, because New Orleans is probably one of my favorite places to have food. Their food is amazing, and one of my favorite restaurants that I would say is a must while in New Orleans is Willie Mays. They have the best fried chicken, and those are not my words. Those are actually quoted words from the restaurant that they have been awarded the best fried chicken in the world, and I actually agree. It is definitely the best fried chicken I've ever had in my life. I definitely recommend it. We actually end up going there twice, so that's pretty much says it all right there. Another historic restaurant in New Orleans is Dooky Chase. This is actually a place that has a lot of history. I know Martin Luther King and Obama eat in here. A bunch of other famous people and important people from our time have come to Dooky Chase. I would definitely recommend coming to Dooky Chase. It's very historic, very good soul food, and I would actually recommend getting their gumbo. She has really good gumbo that they make, so definitely visit Dooky Chase. Now, like I said earlier, I'm big into craft beer, and if you are too, I would recommend a place called 504 Craft Beer Reserve. This place is dope. They have a plethora of craft beer, from sours, from IPAs, from ales, from stouts, from cans to barrel aged to everything. So if you like craft beer, I would definitely recommend going to 504. It is a place that is like a Toys R Us for craft beer lovers. Something else that New Orleans is popular for is their po' boys. There's a lot of different spots that you could get po' po' boys, but one of the spots that is pretty famous to get a po' boy is Parkway Bakery. When I went, I think this is only seasonal, but they had a James Brown po' boy, which is really good. It's kind of messy, so just be prepared for that. And there's always a line also. It's one of those famous spots, so when you go, give yourself some time to wait in line and wait for your food, but it is worth it. The food is amazing. Not just their po' boys, but all their food is good there, so definitely hit up Parkway Bakery. So another historical place to go while in New Orleans is Jackson Square. It's in the French Quarter, and while in Jackson Square, definitely check out the church. It's St. Louis Cathedral. It's a really pretty building, very historic. I mean, just look at the building. It looks really nice. Definitely recommend spending your day taking in the history of the St. Louis Cathedral in Jackson Square in the French Quarter, and then you can actually walk into the garden in front of the cathedral, take a picture. It's definitely a photo opportunity. All right, back to the drinks, because we know New Orleans is huge on drinks. Another bar that I recommend going to is the Blacksmiths Shop bar. I think I'm saying this right. Lafitte's Blacksmith Shop bar is the way you say it. They are known to be the oldest bar in the city, and they are famous for their Bloody Marys. Now, they said that they don't have any power in this building, but when we went, they did have power, so I don't know if they have like a generator in the back, but they are the oldest bar in the city, so definitely worth, checking it out for like the historical aspects of it. It's a piano bar and lounge. It's one of those bars that has a lot of history. They say that a lot of pirates used to come here back in the day and drink, so you get to drink where pirates used to drink at. It's pretty cool. And now if you like oysters, one of the places that I recommend to get some oysters is the Corner Oyster House. I definitely recommend this spot. They were nice, they were fresh, they were yummy, so definitely get yourself some oysters. And of course, New Orleans is known for their architecture. The French style of architecture is just so beautiful. I normally don't take pictures of just buildings, but I mean, who could resist taking pictures and capturing these buildings? Like, you could just tell the history behind it is just amazing. Beautiful buildings. Just walking around is just fun in itself, so definitely recommend just walking around, hanging out, and check out all the different buildings and architecture in the city. You can go down Bourbon Street or any street around Bourbon Street to see all these buildings. And also make sure to check out the Mississippi River, whether you're going on a boat or just walking up to it and checking it out. I don't know if you could get into it or if you really would, maybe in the summer, but when we went it was kind of cold, but it's cool just to check it out. I mean, I've been hearing about the Mississippi River my whole life from school, so it's cool to actually see it in person, so definitely recommend checking it out. Another nice restaurant to check out is the Original French Market restaurant. They are famous, as you can see, for their garlic and herb char grilled oysters, which were amazing. You can just smell the food just walking up to this place. You can see them cooking the food, and then their view is amazing. Try and get a seat on the second floor so you can see all of the French Quarter. I also got raw oysters, which were really good. Now back to my beer fanatics. This was our last stop before leaving New Orleans, so I had to have a couple drinks before getting on the plane. We stopped at the World of Beer. I think it's a franchise, I'm not sure, but they do have one in New Orleans, and it was really good. We went right when they're open, so we got lucky. There was a lot of room to sit around. They had really good beers from all over the world. We got a pretzel, which was huge. Definitely recommend getting a pretzel and trying out some beers. Yeah, overall, New Orleans is one of my favorite places to go to. I definitely recommend it. I love New Orleans. It has a very special place for my heart now that I visited. The people are amazing. The food is just to die for. The bars and the club scenes are just so much fun. I definitely recommend going to New Orleans, so have fun in your trip to New Orleans. Peace.